Okay, so I kind of feel like this week's chapter was I don't want to say disappointment. It wasn't a disappointment because the chapter was still pretty good for what it was worth for what it was, but still it was I guess kind of a letdown is the best way to describe this chapter. Yeah, letdown would be the best way to describe it because it's not exactly what we were all expecting. It was still pretty good. But after the last week's chapter, we got to see Yami face off against Captain Charlotte, which is a fight that we've been waiting for a long time now. Especially us fans who knew for months now that Charlotte actually was going to be an elf. This is a fight that we've actually been pretty hyped about, and we hyped up in our heads. And it did disappoint in the last week's chapter. We got to see the two of them go at it. We got to see Yami split Captain Charlotte's attack, her giant, all-powerful attack, in half at the end of the last week's chapter. And then after the way that one ended, we expected this week's chapter to open up with the two of them continuing their fight. But instead, we just get basically a brief mention of it in the beginning of the chapter. So yeah, while this chapter was actually pretty good, it just kind of didn't live up to the hype that we're all hoping it would. I mean, it's kind of like if you're a kid and you ask your dad for a German Shepherd, and then the next day he kind of comes home and he brings home a poodle instead. It's like, this wasn't exactly what I was hoping for, but I still got the dog. It's that kind of feeling, and that's basically what I got from this week's chapter. But yeah, like I said, we actually get to see Charlotte in the very beginning of the chapter, and she's kind of reminiscing over the fight she just had with Yami, because after Yami was actually able to split her attack in half, basically the remaining parts of that attack were able to actually hit the buildings next to Yami, and the rubble basically fell on top of him, basically burying him underground. So he's kind of just stuck there for the beginning of the chapter. And when she's taken back to the attack, she realizes that despite the fact that her attack was way more powerful than his was not only able to split it in half, but also able to actually reach her a little bit. It only hit her gauntlets, but it still was able to reach her, and that kind of scares her a little bit. Not only the fact that she's out of mana, but the fact that his attacks were able to reach her despite being weaker than hers was something that kind of scared her, and it's the reason why she actually left the fight early instead of finishing off Yami and making sure he was actually dead. Because she doesn't really say it in this chapter, but I'm guessing that she's going to go and tell Lich and the rest of them that the humans are actually more capable than they think, and they should actually take it a little bit more seriously and be a little bit more cautious when they're fighting them. Because we've already seen she doesn't know this, but we've already seen in the series so far that basically, despite the fact that humans are way weaker than elves, they are still able to fight on par with them. Like, look what happened with Magna and Vanessa. Despite the fact that they were weaker than Luck, they were able to kind of drive him pretty far in his fight. He had to actually go all out, despite the fact that they were so much weaker than him. And even more so when you look at Mario Leona, she was going up against 6 elves by herself, and still got to the point where they actually had to all attack her at once in order to defeat her. So it just goes to show that humans actually are more capable than elves actually give them credit for. And it just goes to show that elves are actually going to have to be a lot more serious in this fight or in this war if they truly want to achieve their goals. Anyway, after she leaves, Yami actually ends up busting out of rubble just as Soul comes to check up on him. Which, by the way, she actually ended up burying that thing that Yami gave her at the end of the last chapter, or during the last chapter. Which someone actually commented on my last video that was actually the body of Magic Emperor Julius, which actually does make a lot of sense now that I think about it, because Julius, he was on top of that tower that Yami was fighting Marks and the other guy on. And I'm pretty sure that got destroyed by either Marks or by Charlotte herself. So it makes sense that he actually would take the body, put in like some kind of protective barrier with his magic in order to protect it, because Julius was his friend, it was his ally, someone he actually admired a lot. So he would want to keep his body safe despite the fact that he was actually dead. So yeah, I guess that kind of makes a lot of sense. But anyway, the two of them are talking, and they basically come to the conclusion that they're going to work together to save Charlotte, which we all kind of figured that they would anyway. The two people that are closest to her would be the ones to actually work together to save her and actually turn her back into a human. But that's pretty much where that part of the chapter ends. Then after that, we actually check over with Gaudair, the former captain of the Purple Orcas in the Royal Dungeon of all places. And it's kind of I don't really understand the point of this part of the chapter, because alright, we see Gaudair, we see him, and he's basically like, alright, well, everything's going to shit. I'm going to take this chance to get the fuck out of here. And he basically uses the fact that the tower that he was in was destroyed, and the fact that the capital is being under attack, to try to escape and flee for his life. And then he ends up running into this guy who, at first when I saw him, I thought he was actually Jack the Ripper, the head of the Green Mantis. But it turns out it was actually Revchi, of all people, which I actually completely forgot about this character. I mean, if you don't know, I don't blame you. This character is literally so unimportant to the story that even I forgot about him. But Revchi was actually the guy that Asta and Yuno fought against in the very first chapter. That guy that actually uses chain magic. And it's like, why him? Why him of all characters? Why these two characters of all characters are we taking time to focus on, instead of focusing on the fight between Yami and Charlotte. Why are we giving these two guys royalty? And it's basically like, I guess it's basically just kind of setting up what's going to happen later on in the series, because the two of them kind of argue. They kind of go back and forth because they actually were former squad mates. In fact, it's kind of weird in the chapter. In fact, it's kind of weird. In the translated version of the chapter that I read, there's a little editor's note where they say that in the original, Japanese version of the chapter, Gaudair actually called Verchi senpai, which kind of implies that Verchi was actually above him. But that doesn't make a lot of sense because Gaudair should have been captain by the time Verchi was actually exiled from the Purple Orcas. Because I believe he was actually, if I remember correctly, he was actually kicked out just before Asta and Yuno actually got their grimoires. So it's kind of weird that you'd be calling him senpai, but it might just be, editor's mistake. I don't know. But anyway, the two of them start arguing, and they both kind of just come to the conclusion after the end of the argument that they're both kind of in the situation that they're in. They're both like, the reason why they were kind of imprisoned in the dungeon all this time was because of Asta, and they both kind of just blame Asta for all their shit. Which Repchi actually had full reason to blame Asta for the reason why he was in the dungeon. Asta actually kicked his ass. But Gaudair, it wasn't really Asta's fault that you got caught. I mean, one, you were sloppy as hell with, basically betraying the entire kingdom. And two, Asta really only got rid of your invisibility magic. You still could have got away if you were stronger. It was actually Real, or Lil, however you want to pronounce it. It was actually him, or actually, it was actually Raya pretending to be Lil at the time. But it was actually him who actually defeated you and actually captured you. So if anything, you should be more upset with him than you are with Asta. But I guess this part of the chapter was actually more so. It seemed like it was more so, there to set up that the two of them would actually be going after Asta. Maybe not during this arc. I don't see a reason why they should actually focus more on them for the rest of the arc. But later on in the series, after Asta and the rest of the Clover Kingdom defeat the elves, maybe they'll be like kind of mini antagonists later on after that for just like a 5 or 6 chapter arc. And you know what, I will say this, when we actually get to that part of the series, when we actually see the two of them facing off or teaming up to face off against Asta, I'm actually kind of somewhat looking forward to that. I don't want to see it during this arc, but after seeing the way the two of them actually work so well together when they actually fight off against the elf in this chapter, actually I'm kind of looking forward to seeing exactly how Asta would actually face off against the two of them by himself. I'm somewhat looking forward to that, despite how pointless I think this part of the chapter is. And then we get to the end of the chapter where we actually head over to the Crimson Alliance headquarters, and we see that basically the Vice Captain Randall was actually turned into an elf himself, and he's basically kicked the ass of everyone there at the base, and the only one left standing really is Leo, which makes a lot of sense because Leo's actually the only character in the Crimson Alliance besides his brother and his sister that we actually give a shit about. But anyway, the chapter pretty much ends with setting up the fight between him and the Vice Captain of the Crimson Alliance, which I'm guessing isn't going to go too well for him. I mean, he's already kind of beat the shit on top of that, and despite how much I actually like Leo as a character, he's not really all that strong when you think about it in the long run. I mean, I can't really think of any fight that he's won without anyone else helping him, which actually kind of brings me to my theory for next week's chapter. I actually think since we're setting up the fight between him and the Crimson Lion, the Vice Captain, after Leo basically gets his all and then ultimately ends up getting defeated, I'm guessing either Mario Leona or Asta is actually going to jump in and save the day. Because I'm guessing at this part of the chapter, we actually catch back up to the current timeline. Because, that fight between Yami and Marks and the other guy and Charlotte kind of sends us back in time a little bit. But now I'm guessing we're actually caught up to the current timeline, and we're actually going to see Mario Leona, who's actually healed now, not really get her revenge because, Randall's not the elf that actually defeated her. It was actually kind of a combination between Raya and a whole bunch of other ones. But still, basically after she got defeated by elves, her defeating another elf would be kind of her getting her revenge in a way. And actually it would be more satisfying seeing his big sister, the current captain of the Crimson Alliance, come to save the day, instead of seeing Asta come in with his anti-magic sword. I mean, sure, he can actually come in and, turn Randall back into a human after the fight's over, but I actually want to see her. It would be more satisfying to see her actually come in and save the day and defeat him instead of Asta actually coming in and doing it himself. But that's pretty much it for the chapter. Like I said, it wasn't a disappointment. This chapter actually was still pretty good for what it was, but it wasn't what we were hoping for. It wasn't the epic or the continuation to the epic fight that we're hoping to get in this week's chapter, but it still set up some pretty good things I'm actually excited to see later on in the series, so I'll give it a pass. But yeah, it's pretty much it for the chapter. I'm hoping to see, an epic fight between Randall and Leo in the next week's chapter. But that's pretty much all I have to say. Let me know in the comment section down below how you guys felt about the chapter. Were you upset by this chapter? Like, did you think it was a letdown like I did? Or were you just fully disappointed? Or did you not care at all about the fight between Charlotte and Yami? And think this chapter is actually pretty good for itself. But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below. But that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts and theories. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace.